Hi, this is Julian for Pro Tools Expert, and this time I've been looking at the VSR S24 from Relab. This is very different from the last reverb I looked at from Relab, which was a very skeuomorphic look at the Lexicon 480. This is very much a modern user interface, but it's also based on some hardware. This is based on the TC Electronics System 6000, although they don't explicitly say so in the accompanying documentation. It's very clearly what it's based on. And that is a unit I've had the pleasure of using in the past. It's extremely high-end and very, very tweakable. And I'm glad to say that this is every bit as tweakable. We'll be looking at that in a minute. In my day-to-day reverb use, I'm not that much of a tweaker. I like to pull up a preset and tweak one or two of the kind of main parameters and just get on with it, just because reverb is something that can occupy an awful lot of your time. There's so much to it, replicating the sound of a real space or choosing not to, depending on what you want to do. But this is exactly what this is for, and I've really enjoyed being drawn into the world of reverb tweaks. So let's have a quick look around. First off, I've got some drums, which I'm just running through this, and if we just have a listen to this, is extremely dry drums. Here it is with nothing. And pulling in just one of the presets, here we've got a jazz hall and nice natural reverb. To have a look at the contrast offered here, let's have a look at a couple of other presets. Being based on TC hardware, it does big halls really, really well. However, I'm interested in the small spaces because that's the thing that's really stood out for me. It does small spaces really nicely, and I think that's something that we're really good at hearing fakery in. We're very used to the sound of small spaces. Taking a quick look around the UI, we've got on the main page the really important stuff. We've got reverb time, we've got high cut, we've got individual control over the level and the solo of the dry, early and reverb elements of the reverb. But everything else is based in these tabs down here. Early reflections are really worth a look at just because we've got so much control over exactly what's going on. We've got a choice of all of these different early reflections, a couple of which are recorded from different areas of the space, front or back or stuff like that, and they do sound extremely different. In the reverb tab, we've got control over time and diffusion and time multipliers for the different spectral elements of the tail, which gives you more control than I'd ever need, frankly. In the 480 review, I concentrated on the modulation options quite a lot because of Random Hall being so well known for not having woozy, swooshy in and out modulation on the tails. And this is just as good, actually. If we have a quick listen here. And if I really crank that modulation up, and hopefully you can hear that modulation on the tail pulling the pitch up and down, but not in too woozy a way. The Advanced tab hints towards the kind of control that you can get, because here we've got 4 different reverb lines, left to left, right to right, and then right to left and left to right. And you've got control over the decay time level and different reverb types assignable to each. As I said, lots of tweaking available. And lastly, onto setup, where we've got control over the appearance of the UI and some other stuff like that. To really show this off at its best, I thought I'd run some VO through it, because something that really impressed me was how good this reverb is at imitating real spaces and giving convincing, particularly small spaces. So starting off with a typical big lush hall, here we go.
This is VSR S24 by Relab. This is VSR S24 by Relab. This is VSR S24 by Relab. This is VSR S24 by Relab.
While we've got this vocal example up, here I've muted the reverb tail and the dry signal, so we're just listening to the early reflections.
This is VSR S24 by Relab.
And if I go back to the early reflections tab, and we have a listen to some of the differences between these different early reflections, they give them so much character. If I switch from this one to parking garage.
This is VSR S24 by Relab.
And we can hear really strong, pronounced early reflection there. Versus bathroom.
This is VSR S24 by Relab.
That's just an illustration of how much variety there is in the real fundamentals of the character of the reverb that you've got to play with here, and how well focused they are on small spaces, which is why I think this is particularly suitable for radio use, actually. Why don't I say post? Well, there is one drawback to this reverb that I haven't referred to yet, but unfortunately it's only available in a stereo version. There is no surround version. I've spoken to the developers and apparently there is no technical limitation to this. It's a legal constraint. And while they're capable of making a surround version, they can't do that at this time. That's a real shame. However, what I think this is great for is it's a great UI that encourages tweaking, and that's something that other reverb plugins haven't really tempted me into in the past. And it gives excellent control. I particularly like those early reflections and the options and the variations you've got in there. Cons, there is no surround version, which is a pity. And I do think that it's a bit of a pity that in the main window, you can't gang these early reflection and reverb levels together, which is kind of a shame. I'd like it if they moved together, keeping proportional offset compared to each other. All in all, though, this is a very, very capable reverb. And if you like the sound of TC reverbs and you've aspired to own a stereo version of a System 6000, then absolutely go for this.